Good afternoon and welcome back everyone to Bald Feather Bets. We are going to do our college football and our NFL recap video together in one today. Was traveling back yesterday from Vegas to Birmingham, Alabama. So didn't have time to get at you with the video separated between college and NFL. So no worries, we got it both for you today in terms of our recap of what was week 6 in college football and week 5 in the NFL. Customary, we will start with college since that one should have come out yesterday. We'll start in college. There isn't near as many games as the previous week, which were impactful as near as many as that are coming up this week. But there are a few major takeaways for us. So we'll start with the one big impact one we had in the Big 12, which was Cincinnati over Iowa State. Saw this one coming. Obviously, we were on Cincinnati pretty big. We liked them. Got hairy late. Iowa State definitely made a comeback. Cincinnati still learning how to put teams away. But Cincinnati showed that they're definitely a really solid team in the Big 12. The problem is elsewhere you had Texas Tech and Houston. Houston at home, we were on Houston trying to show that they had some fight to throw a wrench into Texas Tech, and that went nowhere, 35-11 Tech. So really, the thing for us still in the Big 12 is until someone shows that they're even in a remotely the same area code as Texas Tech when it comes to roster talent, we don't really see anyone giving them a challenge. That doesn't mean we're not going to bet against them in terms of against the spread, but for someone to actually challenge them for the conference, we're not really seeing that. We're going to get into the afternoon here. We will talk about Penn State, but we're going to save that one for the end because I have a little bit of a different take than what most people are having right now. So we also, then in that afternoon, we'll talk about Texas and Florida. I know a lot of people are making quite a bit of assumptions with regards to that, and why that game, to me, was a lot more concerning for Texas than Ohio State, and very opposite of the reason about what most people are talking about. But first, I want to start off a little bit with Virginia-Louisville. A lot of people didn't watch that game, just saw the outcome. Virginia is still undefeated. Virginia, I believe, had 2 defensive touchdowns in order to win that one, if I'm remembering correctly. Still won it in OT, 30-27. We're still not high on Virginia. I think that there's quite a bit of overinflation to them in the market. And then you had Maryland take a 20-0 lead, I think, on Wisconsin, and ultimately lose the game 24-20. That one was also pretty interesting to watch unfold. I think that cross-country travel definitely caught up with Washington, but then Washington able to rebound and bounce back. Easily is not the word, but once they got it going, Maryland didn't really have anything for them, and Maryland was considered to be a defensive juggernaut, and obviously that was not the case. Let's Alabama Vanderbilt first. So we got very lucky with the cover, obviously, on Alabama scoring that touchdown late. But that game showed, again, an ability by Alabama to win games multiple ways. So Vanderbilt wanted to drag Alabama out into the deep water, wrap around them like an alligator and slowly drown them. And Alabama said, okay, let's go swim out into the deep water. And then sank together with Vandy, but Vandy was the one who drowned and not Bama. Bama beat Vandy at the exact game that Vandy wanted to play, which is scary for Alabama opponents for sure. It's the same thing in terms of that win is as impressive. I'm not going to say any win under the DeBoer era, because both the Georgia wins are pretty impressive, but it's up there for Bama in terms of how impressive that win is. Doesn't mean we won't maybe be on Missouri this week, but Bama again shows why They're one of the few teams that I think can win the national title. Similar in a sense of like Indiana's win over Iowa 2 weeks ago is significantly more impressive to me than their win over Illinois, because that game went exactly the way Iowa wanted it to go, and Indiana still beat them on the road in Kinnick versus at home against Illinois. That it's a similar situation with Bama being at home against Vandy. Makes it not quite as impressive as Indiana's win over Iowa, but still very impressive. Florida, Texas. So the reason Texas lost in the Ohio State game simply due to quarterback play that was very clearly mental, but they won almost everywhere else in the game, so that one wasn't near as concerning. They got beat by Florida because they got beat on both lines of scrimmage quite in a dominant fashion, quite physically dominated. Even wide receivers like Dallas Wilson's 55-yard touchdown dominantly physically shoves the cornerback down to get out, not in a pass interference way, like very legal play, but just completely dominates him and then tie ups the sideline, gets around people. The running game was there for Florida all day. Texas didn't have answers. They kept getting pushed off the ball. The left guard was an absolute turnstile. Arch was pressured so many times, but Texas probably got its best game QB-wise that it's had all year. Arch played really well against Florida. But they had absolutely no physicality on any area. They didn't have physicality at the offensive line of scrimmage. I think so Arch was sacked 6 times. I think the stat is he threw 9 passes where he wasn't touched, and only 4 passes where he wasn't hurried to an extent. And don't get me wrong, Arch is holding onto the ball too long, which is something QBs do in their first few games. But it isn't like he's holding onto the ball to the extent where he should be getting not touched on only 9 throws all game. So that was very concerning. The other aspect of that was we told you Florida had a really good defense. We told you we thought they were one of the best defenses in college football. I think they are better than OU's defense, even though statistics will tell you not. A lot of that has to do with who Florida's played and who OU has played. A little insight into maybe how we're leaning this week. But if Florida can do that on offense, that's their pathway to continue to have success while Lagway recovers from the leg injury but is still able to play. They didn't ask Lagway to do too much except for connect on some deep balls that is his specialty and strength, rather than try and run around and play Superman on one leg. If Baugh's able to get that type of push every time in the run game from the running back position, Florida's going to be a very tough out for the remainder of the year, and quite honestly a candidate to go 9-3 and make the playoff. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, so I mean, it's very different from what you're seeing online. I mean, most people who didn't actually watch the Texas-Florida game and are just making a take because they looked at box score, but yet Arch probably played his best. No, he didn't play as good as he did against Sam Houston State, but considering opponent, Arch played his best game of the season, played really well against Florida. And the lines of scrimmage really let him down, the whole team. And that was concerning to see, because it's maybe only the second or third time. Georgia last year in Austin, maybe only the second or third time in the past 4 years where Texas got physically dominated by a team. Bodes well, I think, for Florida. Part of that is, I think, how solid Florida is physically on offensive, defensive line. The other part of that is concern for Texas, for sure. Miami, and again, I know it's in the afternoon. We just did the afternoon slate. We will come back to Penn State, UCLA. Miami and Florida State. Florida State had 29 first downs. Miami had 14. Florida State turned the ball over 3 times. You lose a game by 6, that you more than doubled your opponent in terms of first downs. Those 3 turnovers are going to prove costly. Now, they more than doubled them in first downs, but only beat them slightly in yardage, and that's because they also couldn't stop Miami from getting a big play all night long. Miami also took their foot off the gas for a while, which was weird, because then they tried to kind of like get it back going again, and they really weren't able to, and that's how FSU almost pulled that one out there. Miami is a better team than Florida State, especially if you don't get a perfect night from Castellanos. Miami is built up a little bit much right now in an area that I don't necessarily think they should be. Miami should not be in the same discussion right now, in my opinion, as Ohio State, Alabama, Miami and Oregon are in the same conversation. They shouldn't be in the same discussion right now as Ohio State and Alabama. So, yeah. Ohio State, Minnesota, I'll touch on it. I think a lot of Minnesota's defensive metrics were they weren't fake, but they're propped up a little bit. So I don't make too much of that. The fact that Ohio State exploded offensively at home in a night game against Minnesota, I do make more of Ohio State continuously proves that this is a potentially GOAT caliber defense. They gave up 3 points, and they gave up like 0 big plays, sustained drives, anything like that. It's for someone to score 14 or more points on Ohio State this year, given the schedule, is going to be difficult. And so it is something that we're going to have in our mind any time spreads are coming out. Ohio State, in my opinion, if they score 20 points in every game, will probably go undefeated. So we'll see what happens. Then, all right, we'll talk about it. Penn State, UCLA. I make absolutely nothing in that game, and I put 0 stock into it when it comes to betting moving forward. The Penn State-Oregon game was a game that had been building for years, was a game that team, that fan base, that university, that area of the country, State College, Pennsylvania, put everything into, and they came up short. Getting up to travel 3 time zones to the other end of the country to play a team that had not led all year was always going to be a difficult task. So they were never going to blow UCLA out. We didn't bet on it because it just didn't really matter. But they were never going to blow UCLA out, and they ended up ultimately losing. The only thing I put stock into is Rojas's injury. Now, that shows that they're not as deep as maybe a few people thought they were. We didn't really ever think they were that deep here. We just thought that given their schedule and given their returning production, they were kind of the surest thing to just go 10-2. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen now. But in terms of betting moving forward, you're probably going to get some really good Penn State lines. And we're going to be on them. Just point blank. Yeah, I put 0 stock into that game. They just didn't. I mean, once they did start showing up, the offense woke up, couldn't really be stopped all that much. Very surprising to see a Jim Knowles team get beat like that. But in his first year at Ohio State, he got beat like that a few times. Gave up a few large number of points in a game, but yeah, the only thing I really put into anything from that game is not really that game. It's just I've been putting into it since I knew it happened, is the Rojas injury. That's gonna be tough for them to overcome. They don't have another one of those. Penn State is not a stock the shelf with 5-star after 5-star after 5-star, and Rojas means a lot to that team. So anyway, 0 stock in that game from Penn State side. Don't care that it happened. Doesn't matter anything to me. Will impact us on whether or not we choose to bet on Penn State 0 moving forward. Definitely the Rojas injury does, though. So that is something that we're paying attention to. All right, that's pretty much it for the recap of College Football Week 6. Like I said, there wasn't much. All that happened this past week wasn't really that big of a deal. People are making a lot of big deal about the Texas and Penn State defeats. Penn State was an uglier loss. I put more stock into the Texas game because that showed weaknesses on line of scrimmage. But Florida's a really good team, and UCLA is not a good team, but like I said, just the spot was really hard for Penn State. So we put more stock into the Florida beating Texas in terms of a negative side for Texas than we do UCLA beating Penn State in terms of a negative side for them. Obviously, the Penn State defeat's more detrimental to them, though, than losing a game at Florida to a good Florida team. All right, now let's look at NFL Week 5. Starting off with San Francisco over the Rams, it continuously, Kyle Shanahan has an edge over Sean McVay. He just does. Even when he doesn't have as good of a team, there's a coaching edge there that exists. I don't know exactly what the overall records are, but Shanahan is significantly up on McVay when it comes to head-to-head, and will not understand McVay not going for the tie. Just won't. When we get into NFL, Cleveland, you can't have the most dominant defense in the NFL, have the game won, pin the Vikings, I think, back at like the 20. Vikings needed to make a 80-ish yard drive to win, and giving that up the way they did and leaving Addison uncovered in the end zone on the final play. That's just a bad look for a Browns defense that's supposed to be the most dominant in the NFL. But they definitely showed that weakness. I thought Gabriel played fine. They didn't ask him to do too much. He did what they asked him to do. I thought he played fine. In that 1 p.m. window, the Raiders were disappointing. That is... You got to be really worried about Geno at this point. You got to be worried about Pete Carroll at this point. They didn't even show up, and that's not like a Raiders team. That was disappointing. The Jets finally started clicking a little bit. That fumble, touchdown, turned 98-yard drive from the Cowboys pretty much sealed that, though. I mean, that was early on. If the Jets score there, I think they make it 10-7, 10-3, I forget what they make it, but they fumble. Dallas puts together a 98-yard drive going the other way. That's not the most disappointing fumble near the end zone this weekend. But we're coming to Arizona Cardinals. Just not yet, because you were in the afternoon window. Broncos. We were all over them over the Eagles. We told you the Eagles aren't that good. They're a good team. They're just not like an elite team the way they were last year. I think you're going to see a lot more stuff like that happen over the course of the year. We still don't really think the Broncos are all that great either. Really not too much of note in that 1 p.m. window. There really weren't that many good games. You had some surprising no-shows by the Raiders, but it wasn't I mean, I think our bets went 4-2 in that window, and I think we were 10-6 overall units wise. So I mean, it wasn't too many things surprised us other than how inept and how much the Raiders didn't show up. Afternoon window. Everybody's on Gannon for his sideline interaction with DeMercado. I thought they should have cut DeMercado on Monday. I have no issue with how Gannon responded. He lost his team the game on a play. He started to slow up as he approached the goal line. Then he fumbles the ball by dropping it before the end zone. A week after that just happened in another NFL game where every single building showed that play and said, hey, make sure you don't do this. It was about to go up 28-6 on a 74-yard touchdown. Obviously that lost us our cover because then Titans come back and cover. I don't really care about the crazy interception, fumble, Titans recover, touchdown. That stuff, people fumble sometimes. The DeMercado dropping it on the goal line. I don't have any issue with how Gannon responded to him. I don't have any issue with Gannon yelling at him. I don't have any issue with Gannon kind of hitting him on the yard. I thought the Cardinals should have cut him and kicked him out of the building. Can't do that. It was different than the A.D. Mitchell one too. A.D. reached the ball out and then lost grip of it. He just point blank just tossed it before he crossed the end zone. And he's replaceable. So if I was Gannon, I understand why Gannon apologized in the current environment that we live in, socially and all that stuff. But that's one of the worst NFL plays I've seen ever, and it changed the game and it lost him a game. Coaching staffs get replaced over losses. Families have to move. Coaching staffs are usually at a point in life where they have several kids in terms of their age. I thought the appropriate response would be to cut DeMercado. If James Conner hadn't gotten injured, I think there's probably a good chance that they would have, honestly. The Lions beat the shit out of the Bengals. Bengals went and got Joe Flacco over it. Not really surprised there. Seahawks, Bucks. We have continued to be on the losing side of a Baker Mayfield comeback, what feels like every single week. Didn't do it to us when we were on the Eagles 2 weeks ago, but did it to us again on this one. Darnold just can't throw that pick, and that's bad. But we're still very high on Seattle. Still think Tampa Bay is a bit of a paper tiger, but it may not matter if Baker's able to continue to do that all the time, especially without his full outlet at receiver. Washington Chargers, we told you what the Chargers have on offensive line. It's not going to be able to get it done for them. Saw that one coming from a mile away. Washington, when they got Jaden Daniels, we think they're going to win the NFC East. We told you preseason, we're not coming off that. We think they're going to win the NFC East. Washington's a very good team. And then Sunday night, Monday Night Football, we were on the Patriots. I'm not surprised they won outright. Bills are not that good. Bills' run defense is essentially non-existent, especially when it needs to be there. And if Josh Allen cannot be Superman, they don't have much else. Bills are not that good of a team again, just like they weren't that good of a team last year. I was fooled a little bit to start the season, thinking they'd cleaned up some of the run defense stuff. Really coming in preseason, I was like, I think maybe the Bills might be better. They proved to me again that they're just not. We're not surprised there at all. Patriots are a good team. Patriots are a very good team. If Drake May continues to improve the way he is, Patriots are absolutely a threat for the playoffs. We'll see, because it's only May's second year. I don't know if they're going to get that consistently out of him, but we'll see. Then Chiefs-Jags. Chiefs will be fine. Going to continue to say it every week. Even if they lose to the Lions, they'll be fine. There's a reason they're 2.5-point favorites this week. I see everyone being like, I can't believe the Lions are dogs. I can. I know exactly why the Lions are dogs. Chiefs are fine. Chiefs will still win the AFC West. They're still one of the best teams in the NFL. We were on the Jags for a reason. We thought they were live in that game for sure. So, Even if they lose to the Lions and start out 2-4, they'll be fine. They'll win the AFC West. Zero concern about it whatsoever. And they get Rashee Rice back, not this week, but the following week, because he had a 6-game suspension, and that'll unlock even further things in that team. You guys got to remember they had a 99-yard pick six go against them. Now they got very lucky in terms of having a offensive, what should have been a defensive pass interference didn't get called, and then they got an interception and were able to tie the game off that. They also gave up a 99-yard pick six. It's not going to happen very often, so Chiefs will be fine. But anyway, so that was 18, 23, and 2, I think, in college was how we did on Saturday, and then 21, 10, and 3 in the NFL. So overall, positive week, especially when you include the 5-0 on Thursday, the 2-0 on Friday, and then the 6-0 on Thursday, 2-0 on Friday, 5-0 on Monday. Obviously, we had a really good week. We kind of cleaned house this week. Been seeing this question a little bit. Yes, currently you can see it in our record breakdown. We are better in NFL so far this year. Last year we were better in college. That stuff tends to even out. This is only my second year doing this publicly, but this is my 5th year pretty much doing this professionally. My first 3 years, NFL was edged out college. Not by a ton, but it edged it out. And this year so far, NFL is looking more positive than college, but that can flip on a dime. Never really know, honestly. We go off of a system, we go off of a model. We don't make emotional picks, so systems like that and models tend to even out over time. That's it, y'all. We will be back at you again tomorrow for Thursday Night Football for our pick. Don't think we're going to play anything on Friday. If anything changes, I'll let you know either with a video or a community post. But obviously, we'll be at you Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We got some bangers coming up. We got one pick to get at you before we get out of here to want you to lock it in due to what could end up happening with line movement. We're taking Texas minus the half against OU for 10 units. There's a reason the line makes no sense. And when that happens, I mean, it makes sense to me because I understand that Texas is a better team than OU, but it doesn't make sense to the public because they're trying to bait you into taking OU. OU's not as good of a defense as Florida. Take a look at what they did against, take a look at who they played. Auburn was a lot more successful against OU offensively than they were against Texas A&M. They got Michigan in Underwood's second game ever. And it was the primetime ABC game on the road in Norman. I know you can't run the ball. They will not do to Texas at the line of scrimmage what Florida did, especially offensively. Defensively, OU will get sacks on Arch. But yeah, and the Mateer thing, the reason we're giving you the line now is if Mateer plays, the line won't move all that much. The sports books are factoring in Mateer playing. That's why Texas is only a 1 point favorite. If Mateer does tonight have like a doubtful rating or something on the SEC injury report, or if he ultimately is ruled out, Texas will probably be about a 4.5 point favorite. So we should take it now, and which is why we're giving it to you now. So yeah, Texas minus a half, 10 units. Nothing else right now that we're going to lock in. A bunch of other stuff that we're monitoring. We may lock in a few more picks tomorrow, but we'll obviously outside of our Thursday Night Football, we'll see what we do. Thank you guys. Appreciate it very much. And we will get at you later.